Welcome to Talk to Me. I'm Esther Mills. What happened to the economy in 2008 to create this enormous recession we're in? Chris Braisher, Managing Director of CHB Investment Group of Wachovia Securities, is here to answer that question.
Yeah, we had obviously a pretty bumpy year in 2008, and the broad markets finished the year. I think the Dow was down around 36% and change, and the S&P was down 38% and change without dividend reinvestment. And it was a very rocky road in the last 3 or 4 months of the year, where we went through actually the most volatile October since the Great Depression. And there was volatility both on the downside and the upside. I think everybody recalls late September through early October was extremely volatile on the downside. But then October 15th, I believe it was, we had the highest up day ever, and the market went up 936 points in one day. But we finished the year with a very tough stock market, but also with a very tough economy. And if you look back at what happened last year and where we are right now, it's always easier after the case to Monday morning quarterback and find the root causes and assign blame, and there's plenty of blame to be shared here. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, there are 3 different things that happened. One of them was the general economic cycle, and over time, without getting into too much technical detail, because of economic capacity build-up and tear-down, the economy of any free market cycles over time, and on average, economic cycles are 5 to 6 years. So we were ending the economic cycle to begin with as cause 1, and that's one thing that a lot of folks did foresee, and there's nothing bad about that. Economic cycles go up and they go down, and going down is just as normal as going up. But the other 2 things that fed into that...
So you're saying we're at the end of, right now we're currently at the end of a cycle anyway.
Right, and we would expect the economy to be slower, for the stock markets to relax and give some of their returns back. But compounding the problem is we have 2 other things that went on. One is, starting in the late 90s, the Clinton administration had a policy initiative to increase home ownership to higher levels. It's the so-called American dream. And they were successful in doing that, but the method they used to do that was by lowering lending standards through the quasi-government agencies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And it made loans much more available to folks that previously weren't able to buy homes. Mm. So the policy initiative was met, and there were many, many, many millions of new people that owned homes. The problem is there was a lot more credit risk associated with that. Then the third piece came along, which was 9/11. And of course, 9/11 wasn't anyone's fault in this country, at least not directly. But after 9/11 occurred, in a response to the economy slowing down, I don't know if everyone remembers, it went to kind of a halt for the month that followed 9/11. The Federal Reserve Bank, led by Alan Greenspan at the time, they cut interest rates, a discount rate, all the way down to 1%. And low interest rates...
That's very low, 1%.
Yeah, it was the lowest in 4 to 5 decades. And it did its job in keeping us out of a deep recession, but the mistake in retrospect that some folks could say the Fed made is they left rates too low. And when you leave interest...
They kept it at 1%.
Right, and then moved it up slowly from there.
Uh-huh.
And what happened is low interest rates correspond to high real estate values. Because if you drop an interest rate down from 8% to 4%, for example, then all other things being equal, you can afford a much higher mortgage payment according to lending standards. And so that's what happened. So mortgage interest rates went all the way down to about 4.5%, and we had a real estate market that along the coastal areas in the United States nearly doubled, and in some cases more than doubled, in 4 or 5 years. So we had the perfect storm of these 3 things happening together: the end of the business cycle, the runaway real estate market, and a lot of folks that didn't have very high credit ratings now owning homes. And everything went along fine until the economy did slow down, and now we're at a point where individuals are losing their jobs and their homes are being foreclosed upon, if it weren't for the runaway real estate market, if we had someone that bought $1 million home, for example, in California, and the real estate market didn't go down, the bank typically lends out 80%, so the bank lent $800,000 on that loan. If the bank has to foreclose, they sell the house for $1 million, they get their $800,000 back, and then the homeowner gets whatever the balance is. But in the case that we've seen in the last few years, especially in the California and Florida markets, real estate prices have gone back, in many cases, to 50% of what they were. So if you take that same example, you have $1 million house, it's now worth $500,000. The bank forecloses on it, sells it, gets $500,000, but the bank lent $800,000 out on it.
So they would lose $300,000
right, and you
on that home.
Right, and so you multiply that by 10 or 15 million, and that's the credit crunch that we're in right now.